So this video is going to show us what to do when you're left with a remainder when you do the long division steps. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this problem is I'm going to set up the division house. And what you're probably noticing about this example is that it's a fraction, but we remember that fraction bars mean division. So another way we can write this problem is 63 divided by 6. So the 63 is the dividend, and it's going to go on the inside of the division house. And the 6 is the divisor, and it's going to go outside the division house. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my long division steps: divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. And I'm going to check these off as I do them. So the very first step is divide. So I'm going to ask myself how many times 6 can be divided into the numbers that are inside the division house. So I'm asking myself how many times 6 can be divided into 6. 6 goes into 6 one time. That was the division step. The next step is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply 1 times 6 to get 6. The next step is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 6 minus 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. And then the last, that was subtraction. And then the last step is bring down. So I'm going to bring down the 3. Because this number is not a 0, I'm going to start back over with my division steps. So now I'm going to ask myself how many times 6 goes into 3. How many times 6 divides into 3? 6 cannot go into 3. It goes in 0 times because 3 is too small. So I'm going to put a 0 up here. Okay, that was the division step. Now I'm going to do the multiplication step. 0 times 6 is 0. That was multiplication. Now I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. And because there's nothing left to bring down, I would normally be finished. If we were in 5th grade, we would say that the answer is 10 remainder 3. And then we've also learned this year how we can make this into a fraction by saying that the answer is 10 and 3/6. But now I'm going to show you how we can make this into a decimal. Every single number, even though it doesn't have a decimal point, has an imaginary decimal point at the end with as many zeros as you want that come after it. It's the same thing as saying that something that costs $63 is the same as $63.00. It means the same thing. So even a number that doesn't have a decimal point on the end has an imaginary decimal point with zeros after it. Knowing this, we have a number that we can bring down and put next to the 3. So this is 0 right here. I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to put it next to the 3. So this becomes 30, and now I've completed that bring down step. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my division steps one more time with this 30. So I'm going to ask myself how many times 6 divides into 30. 6 goes into 30 5 times. 5 times, sorry, that was the division step. 5 times 6 is 30. That was the multiplication step. Now I'm going to subtract 30 minus 30, and we get 0. That was subtraction. And because there's this number right here is 0, I don't need to bring anything else down. That means I'm finished. The very last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this decimal point in my dividend, and I'm going to bring it straight up through the roof of the house into my quotient. So that means that my answer comes out to be 10.5.